The government is who you blame if you feel that these victims didn't get justice because he was guilty of the domestic violence and all those things. But you know what they did? They swung for the fence and they went for a RICO.
Basically today the jury decided that a FRICO is not a RICO.
How do you feel about the verdict today?
I'm very happy. I feel like justice was served.
The question is for the people that were complicit, that you think he was guilty. What about everybody that got supposed immunities and proffer agreements and all of that?
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, I'm gonna break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG reels, Facebook, anything weird, unusual, unexplained, you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters, man. It's coming back to the channel each and every single day, watching the videos entirely, man. Commenting down below. Really appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do we do best seekers. Say it with me, y'all. Let's seek the truth.
This woman stayed by her husband's side after he suffered a traumatic brain injury, and her new husband fully supports it. In 2008, 24-year-old Brandon Smith was in a tragic car accident and suffered severe brain injury that changed his life forever. Brandon and Kristen married only 2 years prior, but when Kristen realized that her husband would never fully recover, she filed for divorce. But she agreed to take care of him until the day he dies, and so she filed paperwork to be his legal guardian. After the divorce, Kristen feared that it'd be impossible to find a man who would genuinely love and accept Brandon in their life. But in 2014, Kristen met her now new husband, James. And yeah, they both take care of Brandon together despite Brandon being Kristen's ex-husband. At Kristen and James's wedding, he vowed to love Brandon no matter what. Kristen and James have kids together and they treat Brandon like he's part of the family. Kristen says that James has never expressed or shown any jealousy, and instead he's accepted Brandon with wide open arms.
Disturbing facts you wish you didn't know. There's something called anesthesia awareness, which is where you wake up mentally during surgery. You can feel all the pain and you can see, but you cannot move or speak. And the scariest part is no one even knows you're feeling every cut and incision. And there's stories of people going through 7-hour surgeries feeling every single thing. When you smell something bad, that thing is actually in your nose. When you smell something bad, you're breathing in tiny molecules of that and they're hitting inside your nose, so you might want to be a little careful next time you're inhaling your own fart. Most television laugh tracks were recorded in the 1950s, so you're most likely listening to dead people laughing. Your lip skin is the same type of skin as your anus. They share the same skin because they're the two ends of the pipe called the alimentary canal.
The creepiest places in the world. Gate to Hell, Turkmenistan. It's been burning for past 40 years, and no one knows when it's going to stop.
Lake Natron, Tanzania.
Due to high levels of salt contents, everything that touches the lake turns to pure stone.
We will not be going there. Check that off the bucket list.
Videos that seem innocent but have a terrifying backstory. Part 5. This man kept finding food in his apartment that he wasn't eating, so he asked his girlfriend about it and she said that she wasn't eating it either. He didn't believe her, so he set up a video camera to catch her eating the food in the middle of the night. The next morning, when he checked his video camera, he found footage of a woman that he didn't recognize walking throughout his house. He called the cops immediately, and as it turns out, she had been living there for weeks. This next video shows 24-year-old Hollywood actor James Dean giving a public service announcement on the importance of safe driving habits. Nearly a week later, Dean was killed in a head-on collision where he crashed his Porsche at an intersection. The following is a home video of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer taken on Thanksgiving Day. At the time this was taken, he had murdered and eaten the flesh of 9 people.
Yeah, like I said before, it gets too expensive and I have to start eating at home more.
What he was doing. That was some eerie footage. I can all know what he did. Who was that?
This was the real-life Stewie Griffin, and it was pretty disturbing. In the quiet town of Moon City, Rhode Island, a boy named Brock Lee was born on October 10th, 1954. At first, everything seemed normal. Just 6 months in, a deep man's voice echoed through the house at night. Brock's parents, Pete and Lori, thought their home was haunted. They called in local ghost hunters, but no one could explain it. Hoping to escape whatever it was, the family moved. But the mysterious voice followed them. Then came Brock's first birthday party. As guests gathered, and the TV played in the background, a live police chase broke out on the news. Everyone laughed at how much the fleeing car looked like theirs, until the chase turned onto their own street. To everyone's shock, the car crashed, and their baby, Brock, stepped out, marched inside, and yelled in a deep voice, "Lock the doors!" When police finally entered and arrested him, they discovered the impossible truth. Brock, barely a year old, had the mind of a fully grown genius. The voice haunting their home all year had been his.
1 in a Million, Part 6. In 2003, 24-year-old Juan Catalan was arrested for the execution-style murder of a teenage girl who had just testified in a gang-related case. He spent nearly 6 months in prison and came dangerously close to facing the death penalty. Catalan had a strong alibi. He was at a Dodgers game with his 6-year-old daughter at the time of the killing, but he struggled to find a way to prove it. That was until his lawyer discovered that Curb Your Enthusiasm had filmed at the stadium that exact night. After combing through thousands of hours of raw footage, they found a brief but crystal clear shot of Catalan sitting in his seat holding popcorn with his daughter beside him, accidentally caught in the background of a scene that was never used. Combined with cell phone data confirming he was at the stadium during the time of the murder, the charges were dropped and Catalan was released. Had the camera panned just a few feet in a different direction, an innocent man might have been executed for a crime that he had absolutely nothing to do with.
Caught him in 4K.
This is why you should never approach an abandoned baby carriage. There was a woman who was driving home from work who passed an abandoned black baby carriage. Pulled over to check it to make sure there wasn't a baby inside and see what was going on because it was really weird. Why was it just like in the middle of the road? There was a blanket on top of the carriage so you couldn't see what was inside. Naturally, she pulled the blanket off and she freaked out. She got right back in her car and drove off. Enjoy my stock image. She couldn't eat, she couldn't sleep, she could not stop thinking about this. She was really stressed and her husband kept asking her like, "Are you okay? What happened? Like, what's going on?" And she couldn't talk about it. Everything in her life was going wrong. She decided to pack her bags and leave, and no one actually knows where she went or what happened to her. But she did leave a note behind for her husband. Also, this is more what the basket looked like. It looked like an old-fashioned one rather than a modern one. The husband read the note, and the note said this: "Whoever reads this note is doomed to have a cursed life unless you pass it on." So the baby carriage was a trap. The person put the baby carriage on the road hoping someone kind would go look and see if everything was okay, only to then be cursed. Now, I would show you the physical note, but I can't because this is a creepypasta and I tricked you. Let me know if you fell for it. Come over here if you want to see more of my content.
Imagine going to a family Christmas dinner and almost everyone dies from poisoning. This woman tried to kill her husband's entire family by giving them a cake she baked that was laced with arsenic. 3 family members passed away, 3 others were hospitalized, and this woman who poisoned everyone ended up taken on December 23rd when 42-year-old Diaz Mora baked a cake and invited her husband's entire family over. That evening, they began cutting the cake that they would normally eat on Christmas Eve, and almost everyone complained about the taste and that it tasted a little weird. But they still ate a significant amount of cake, and almost everyone felt sick right away, and 3 people died right then and there. Investigators tested all the ingredients in the house and found that the flour used in the cake was laced with arsenic. But what's absolutely crazy is that a couple of months earlier, Diaz's father-in-law also suddenly died, and they exhumed his body and found high levels of poison. So they think that she also took his life. Now, you guys are probably wondering, well, what was the motive? Why did she do this? At first, the family didn't understand what caused her to commit this crime, but then they thought about it and they remembered a disagreement they had 20 years ago. 20 years ago, and they believe that she might have not got over this disagreement, and that's why she tried to unalive everyone. But things don't even end there, because while Diaz sat in prison, her husband told her that he wanted a divorce, and a day later,
See you tomorrow. We need that over here, man. I didn't even know Finland had schools like that. Imagine that system over here in America. Would it thrive? Who knows?
What's going on, ma'am?
I'm dying, that's what's up.
Irving Fire Department. Ma'am, are you still there? Ma'am, are you still there?
On January 1st, 2008, a heartbreaking 911 call was made by a girl screaming that her dad had just shot her. But tragically, Sarah and her sister Amina passed away before help arrived. After Yasser took the lives of his two daughters, he fled for 12 years. He was captured in 2020 and he's been in prison for more than 4 years. And now he finally gave his first interview where he basically denied everything. Throughout this entire interview, he did not seem regretful for what he did, and instead he tried to tell a different story and claimed that he was the victim.
You make it sound like you're the victim here. Is that what you believe?
Exactly.
You're the victim?
Yes.
And said that he was being framed because of a conspiracy. According to Yasser, the FBI and the media used his case to push a political agenda.
I want my voice be heard. The FBI knows that. My case is being used to achieve cheap political points.
Cheap political points?
Yes.
You say the FBI knows that you are innocent?
They know that, and I will tell you why.
Let me ask you this. In your letters to the judge, right, you write, in my case, you could smell conspiracy in the atmosphere.
Yes.
So that's what this is about. Conspiracy, conspiracy, conspiracy.
Of course.
Cat.
How are y'all feeling? How are y'all feeling? I see the smile.
Have been in court for the past 7 weeks, hearing graphic details of their father's sex life. Their support, though, has remained steadfast. Now they're learning to.
You heard Diddy, you know, some of the charges got dropped.
Psychology facts that'll blow your mind. You're programmed to like the music you listen to in high school the most. From the ages of 12 to 22, everything feels more important, so we tend to emphasize everything that happened in those years. We're programmed to see human faces in almost everything. Your brain is programmed to process images for emotional expression, which is why so many people can find human faces in so many random things. When you remember the past, you're not actually remembering the past, you're remembering the last time you remembered. Your brain treats rejection like physical pain. The same areas of the brain become activated when we experience physical pain and when we experience rejection. Sarcasm is a sign of a healthy brain. People who could instantly use sarcasm to a trivial question tended to have healthier minds.
Is this proof that the Pyramid Lake babies are real? There's a lake in Nevada called Pyramid Lake, and it holds a dark, tragic secret. Hundreds of years ago, a group of pirates lived around the shores. And these pirates were known everywhere for being really strong and, indestructible. Whenever they had a baby in the tribe that was born weak or premature or malformed, they would throw it into the lake because they didn't want to be associated with anybody like that. And their twisted belief came from removing the weak at birth. But their terrible actions ended up cursing this lake forever. Now the spirits of these babies haunt this lake. These are babies who never even got the chance to live, and they are known as the Pyramid Lake babies. Since they were robbed of their lives, they are known to be filled with anger. At night, their restless souls will rise from the water. They will fight, they will scream, they will wail, and their noises will be echoing around the lake. They're searching for a way to get revenge on the tribe that abandoned them. So if you're ever near Pyramid Lake and you hear cries or just strange noises, don't try to help. These spirits do not want to be saved. They want to trap your spirit forever. You can come over here for longer freaky videos.
There are a lot of updates coming out about the Idaho case. So this is really just a recap, just to report out everything that's being reported publicly, keep people informed. And this has been double sourced not only to the reporting sources that first put it out, but also to the police press conferences. Now that Brian Kohberger is in custody as their lead suspect, it is being reported that his DNA was found on the button of a sheath to the knife that was possibly used in the murders. There's also a public affidavit that might have leaked or it was publicly put out that shows that DM, which we're assuming might have been the roommate, was awake and saw him at the time of the murders. He supported this even further by saying that there was security camera footage that's now being made public from 50 feet away from the house at around 4:17 a.m. where you can hear the dog barking. And further confirmations from some of that leaked information that suggested that Xana Kernodle was most likely awake at the time of her murder. Also evidence that Brian was trying to apply and work for the police department that would be investigating his own murders.
Wow, what the hell? What?
Government is who you blame if you feel that these victims didn't get justice because he was guilty of the domestic violence and all those things. But you know what they did? They swung for the fence and they went for a RICO.
Basically, today the jury decided that a Frico is not a Rico.
How do you feel about the verdict today?
I'm very happy. I feel like justice was served. I've been to a few of his parties, and there's been nothing but generosity and positivity, and I've never seen anything negative ever.
I'm an independent journalist that had predicted this was going to be what happened. I said the Rico is weak.
Hopefully he do get some therapy. Hopefully he does get some help. Seek some help. Stay away from the D-rugs and the addiction. But my question is for the people that were complicit, that you think he was guilty, what about everybody that got supposed immunities and proffer agreements and all of that?
Whoa, he was spitting, man. This Diddy case, bro. It's going away, man. People wasn't expecting. People thought Diddy was going away. I mean, when most of his charges got dropped, I think that was a sign right there.
This is one of the craziest urban legends I've ever heard, and it ended up being true. So almost 100 years ago, there was an aquarium in Australia that had a giant tiger shark on display. And the legend goes that one day, in front of like groups of families, the shark threw up a human arm. And not only is that true, but it opened a murder investigation. Also, this week's episode is all about Australian true urban legends, so make sure you listen. So after the shark threw up the human arm, the police had to figure out whose it was and why it was in the shark's belly. Well, the first thing the police noticed was the arm was cut cleanly, not jagged like it was from a shark bite, meaning that the arm was intentionally cut. So now it's clear that this was a murder, but whose arm is it? Well, one thing they noticed is that the arm has two boxers in a fighting stance tattooed on it. So they end up writing about that in the paper, and one guy who was reading it goes, "Hey, that sounds like my brother's tattoo." His brother was a man named Jim Smith, and he was involved in the seedy underbelly of Sydney society. Jimmy ran insurance fraud scams in Sydney, and he was just involved with a lot of bad people. And the last person he was seen with was one of Sydney's most notorious criminals. The story has a lot of twists, including how was he involved with the last guy he was seen with. And there's a lot of fun Australian urban legends like the story of the Button Man, so make sure you check out this week's episode.
They just found 383 bodies in a so-called funeral home, y'all. Somebody tell me how nearly 400 bodies was discovered in one building and nobody noticed for years. They wasn't cremating them, y'all. They was letting the bodies sit, developing a smell. Do you know how strong that smell had to been? And nobody knew? Yeah, alright. This was at a crematorium right near the U.S. and Mexico border, y'all. And get this, y'all, they said some of the bodies that's there was only there for a month. Y'all, and the crazy part is, family members were getting handed ashes in an urn, thinking it was their family members, and it wasn't the whole time. They was thinking their family members was getting cremated, and the whole time, they were doing some weird shit probably. The Mexican authorities say some of these bodies date back from like 3 to 4 years ago. So they said as of right now, they arrested the owner and some of the employees that work there. I don't know, but it feel like something dark going on behind this shit. They said this was in a cartel heavy zone in an area called Juarez, right across from El Paso, Texas, y'all. They said in that area, a lot of trafficking or disappearances take place. So if they found all these bodies in this one place, how many other places are doing the same thing? And how many family members were being lied to, saying they were giving their family ashes when the whole time their bodies was still in the same place? I need y'all thoughts on this as always. This shit crazy, fool.
Yeah, that's an important question, man. I saw that was tragic.
As I live and breathe, I'm going to tell you that it is still breathtaking. No matter how many times I see this happen, it is still breathtaking to hear someone like this, and I'm going to say it for the first time on air, this sick and twisted murderer. This sick and twisted murderer. It's breathtaking to hear him confess. It's breathtaking to hear him say, yes. It's breathtaking to now know after 2.5 years of him saying, it isn't me, it's someone else. It's you. You are the sick and twisted murderer, Brian Kohberger. Legally, we can say it because he said it. I just can't tell you, it just does not get old to see a dry hearing like this, where maybe we didn't get the motive or the details, but we now know that is the sick man that did this.
One of the girls you are looking at in this picture has no idea that in the next few hours she will be killed. This is Cheyenne Rose and Brittany Gargle, and they're doing what every young girl does and taking a selfie. They posted the picture on Facebook and they went out for a night together. The story goes that the two were inside having a drink when Brittany was approached by a man, and the two apparently hit it off so well that she was invited back to his place. Cheyenne messaged Brittany on Facebook asking where she was, but nobody was answering. The next morning, somebody was driving next to a landfill where they ended up discovering the lifeless body of Brittany. The man called the police to report a dead body, and this is where things take a dark turn. The police questioned Cheyenne about what happened, and Cheyenne basically just shows them the messages she was sending Brittany and saying, look, I have nothing to do with this. What Cheyenne is forgetting to tell the police is the messages she was sending to Brittany, she already knew she wasn't going to respond. See, Cheyenne lied about Brittany ever meeting a man. This never happened. Instead, the two got into an argument. Cheyenne took off her belt, as you can see in this picture, and tied it around her neck and strangled her. Cheyenne even went as far as commenting on her Facebook saying, I wish heaven had visiting hours so I could come see you, but I'm so glad you visited me in my dream last night. She was sentenced to only 7 years in prison, and chances are she's probably watching this video. Make sure to like and follow for more true crime stories tomorrow.
What's the scariest urban legend from your state? Today we're doing Missouri. Once again, we're talking about a haunted road, and this one is very creepy. Zombie Road was constructed in the late 1860s. It was originally built to gain access to the Merrimack River and the railroad tracks that were running right beside it. This 2-mile stretch of road had an eerie feel about it from the very beginning, probably because of how dangerous it was to drive along this road. You couldn't see what was ahead of you, and it would often cast really weird shadows. Eventually, this stretch of road would fall into disrepair, and in the 1950s, it became a lover's lane of sorts, where young couples would go to find alone time. They would also throw parties along this road and the likes. But many urban legends have plagued this road from the very beginning. One of the scariest was of a creepy guy who lived along this road in a shack, and he would frequently hurt young teenagers who came to use this area to be alone. People also talk about frequently seeing a woman in white or a woman who is walking along the road who gives off a bluish white light. Many people think that this is the wife of a local judge who passed away in 1876 due to an accident on the railroad track. Some people have even reported hearing a woman screaming at them from some of the abandoned shacks that are around the area, but when they go to investigate who was screaming at them, there is never anybody there. There is also a legend of a small boy who drowned in the river, and people often report hearing him and seeing him, but again, he's just never there. There have been several reports of paranormal activity, but many people just write this off as it's just a creepy trail in the first place. Like, it gives a really weird vibe, and when you feel like you're being watched, you're probably not. It's just your mind playing tricks on you. But others think that this is a hotspot for paranormal activity because of the deaths that have happened there, not just from the judge's wife or the young boy who lost his life or this alleged serial killer that's running around, but there were also many train derailments around this area as well. As it sits today, it's a bike trail. It's called Rock Hollow Trail, and so you can still ride on this road. So would you do it? Are you brave enough? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and follow for more creepy things.
No! The place sounds haunted, man. Too many events, bro, took place there, man. When I go to Missouri, we won't be going there. Another place off the list.
Top 3 creepy last words people said right before dying. A nurse who wants to remain anonymous said that she had a sweet patient named Ella who started to lose herself to dementia. She started talking to herself. Most of the time it was playful. She would laugh to herself. One day, the nurse walked into her room and she was in a complete panic. She had her blanket pulled up to her chin, and she was completely pale. The nurse went to her bedside to ask her what was wrong, and she said, "There is a woman in black looking in my window, and I am just petrified of her smile. The nurse said that it shook her hard. Reddit user Simple Simon 6262 said that when he was a student, he got called in on a stroke patient. She had coded and they were doing CPR. They worked for 45 minutes. But she died. They cleaned her up and called on her family to say goodbye. By the time her family left, she had been both brain dead and without a pulse for over 45 minutes. He said that blood had filled her brain and she was completely gray and had started to smell. Suddenly, she sat up and called for her family. The nurses rushed to get equipment and monitors back on her. She stabilized, said goodbye to her family, and promptly died a second time. Reddit user AJH1717 said that he works in a cardiovascular surgical ICU. He said that they had a stretch of nights where each corner room of their unit reported seeing a black cat walking around. Not a friendly cat either, apparently. The thing was hissing at them. The accounts were so similar to each other that they probably spent half an hour looking for the cat. Then they had security look as well. No cat was ever seen or found. 2 of those 4 patients coded the next day.
This funeral home owner left 190 bodies inside of a building and sent fake ashes to all of the families. He is now going to spend 20 years behind bars for this wire fraud. Now, on top of the 20 years, he also has to pay $1 million for the wire fraud, too. In my opinion, maybe he should serve a year for every body he mishandled, so 190 years? And he committed all of this fraud after the families had paid. So these grieving families just wanting, their loved ones to have peace, get cremated, or get buried, they didn't get anything out of this. And he mishandled all those bodies with memories and family values attached to them. He also didn't preserve these bodies in the right way. He let them stack up in various stages of decay and decomposition. It was so bad that there was a foul odor coming from them, and he just kind of hid it. He closed all the windows, he closed the doors, he didn't let anyone access the building to hide these bodies. He delivered the wrong body twice for a burial, and then he sent concrete mix inside of these urns and tried to disguise them as ashes. This guy and his business, biggest frauds of all time. He also tried to take $880,000 from COVID-19 relief funds back in the day, too.
Scientists said the odds of it happening were 1 in 74 trillion. While 34-year-old Ann Hodges was napping on her couch in Alabama in 1954, a softball-sized meteorite tore through her roof, bounced off her radiator, and slammed into her side, leaving a massive bruise but miraculously sparing her life. She had become the only confirmed person in history to be struck by a meteorite. The space rock triggered a legal battle between Ann and her landlord over ownership, but it ended up in Ann's possession. The rock is now on display at the Alabama Museum of Natural History. Tom Cruise divorced all 3 of his ex-wives when they turned 33, and each is 11 years younger than the last. In 2009, a retired policeman named Geraint Wolford was admitted to Abergele Hospital in North Wales. Amazingly, it just so happened that he was put next to another retired policeman named Geraint Wolford. The men weren't related, had never met, and were the only 2 people in Europe named Geraint Wolford. In 2004, Grandma Dorothy Fletcher suddenly suffered a heart attack on her flight to Florida. When the stewardess asked if there was a doctor on board, 15 people quickly stood up. It was a group of heart doctors on their way to a cardiology conference.
She took the life of her coworker over some Lululemon leggings. On March 12th of 2011, just before 8 a.m., Rachel walked to a Lululemon store in Maryland where she was the manager at. Once she got to the front door, she noticed it was already unlocked. Once Rachel went inside, she noticed that the clothing racks were scattered all over the floor, mannequins were in pieces on the floor, and she could hear a faint moan in the back of the store. Rachel was terrified. She turned around, ran outside, and called 911. Right next door to that Lululemon was an Apple store, and a guy named Ryan worked there as a security guard, and he saw how frantic Rachel was, and he told her that he would go inside to see what was going on. Once Ryan went inside, he followed a trail of blood to the back room, and that's when he found the store supervisor, Jana, unalived. As Ryan turned around to leave, he saw another employee, Brittany Norwood, and she was lying in the employee bathroom. Her hands were zip-tied, her shirt was pulled up, and there was a Lululemon t-shirt around her neck. Although Jana did not survive this attack, Brittany was okay. Once police arrived, Jana was pronounced dead at the scene, and she suffered from 331 wounds from 5 different weapons, including a wrench and a hammer. 200 of those wounds were on her face and her neck, and 100 of them were defense wounds. Jana was alive for the entire attack until a fatal stab wound hit her spinal cord. As for Brittany, she had a gash on her forehead. She received stitches for it and was released from the hospital that same day. Everyone just assumed that this was a robbery gone wrong, but this was far from the truth. On the night of the attacks, Jana and Brittany were working the closing shift together, and around 9:30 p.m. they closed up and left. Once they left, Brittany had realized she left something back inside of the store, and since Jana was the only one with the keys, she asked her to come back to open the door for her. Jana unlocked the door and disabled the alarm. As Jana and Brittany were looking around the store, 2 masked men came in and they were all wearing black. Allegedly, these guys beat Jana to death, essayed both of the girls, and let Brittany live because she was more fun to do it with. Apparently, this was Brittany's story to police, but police weren't really buying it. When Brittany told police that there was 2 masked men that came in, they started to investigate the place and only saw 2 footprints, which would be Brittany's shoes and a men's size 14 shoes. There was no evidence of SA from either woman, and on Brittany, it wasn't her own blood, it was Jana's. Brittany was caught in a lie, and eventually the truth came out. On the night of the attacks, Jana saw Brittany stuff a pair of Lululemon leggings in her purse and confronted her about it. Once they locked up the store, Jana got in her car, called her manager Rachel to tell her what she had saw Brittany do. A few minutes later, Jana received a call from Brittany telling her she had left something in the store, and that's when Jana turned around to go open the store for her. While Brittany pretended to search for her item, she attacked Jana from behind. She stabbed, beat, and choked Jana for 17 minutes. That night, employees at the Apple store nearby could hear screaming, and they just figured it was nothing. They thought it was just drama going on at the Lululemon store. Once Brittany took Jana's life, she went into her car and moved it. Meanwhile, she was thinking of a plan to stage the scene. She grabbed Jana's blood and put it all over her face, and she cut a hole in the crotch of her leggings. Finally, she grabbed a men's size 14 shoe and walked around the back room to leave footprints to hopefully throw off police. Once Brittany was all done, she zip-tied herself and laid down on the bathroom floor, waiting to be discovered 10 hours later. Brittany ended up being arrested about a week later, and she admitted to everything that she had just lost it at the heat of the moment. Brittany was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
This is one of the scariest urban legends I've ever heard, and it ended up being true. So there's this stretch of road in Turkey along the D100, and the urban legend says that if your car breaks down on the side of this road, do not get out of the car. Because according to the locals, one night, a few people got into an accident, and when they got out of their cars, they all melted on the road. Well, this is coming from an episode I just did on urban legends that ended up being true, but it turns out there is a reason that they all spread this legend around. In 1965, a passenger bus was traveling down this road when it crashed into a big truck carrying a bunch of water, and it caused water to spill out all over the road. The passengers got out of the bus because they were okay, but when their feet touched the pavement, their shoes started to melt, and it felt like their feet were on fire. And that's because the truck was not carrying water, it was carrying nitric acid, an acid that dissolves skin on contact. As they were on the ground crawling away from the accident, the acid was melting the skin off of their bones. And the worst part in all of this is that a group of 12 people saw a bunch of water that had collected in a drainage ditch and thought they should jump into it to protect themselves. But really, they jumped into a pool of undiluted acid and dissolved within moments. If you want to hear more urban legends and the even scarier stories they're based on, check out this episode of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast, and this is part of a whole series that we do.
Man, another place off the Turkey, that road, we won't be going there, man. A pool of acid, and they thought it was water. They jumped into it not knowing. Truly, man.
Morbid Facts, Part 315. In 2006, Abraham Shakespeare won $30 million in the Florida lottery and tried to use it to help others, giving away large sums to friends, family, and even strangers. But sadly, his generosity made him a target. A woman named Doris Diddy Moore pretended to help manage his finances, slowly taking control of his assets while isolating him from loved ones. In 2009, Abraham suddenly vanished without a trace. Months later, his body was found buried beneath a concrete slab behind Diddy's property, shot twice in the chest and covered with lime. In 2012, Moore was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Florence Lawrence, often called the first movie star, rose to fame in the early 1900s and became one of the first film actors to be publicly credited by name. At the height of her career, she suffered a devastating injury in 1915 when a staged fire spiraled out of control, leaving her with severe burns and a fractured spine. Universal Studios refused to pay her medical bills, and her career never recovered. Over the years, she faded into obscurity, taking uncredited roles and struggling with chronic pain and depression. When she died in 1938, she was buried in an unmarked grave, as Hollywood had all but forgotten the woman who helped define it.
First time hearing
The
about
car
that.
wash owner who passed away had a dying wish to shower the streets with money. Just hours after his funeral, a helicopter flew over Detroit and dropped what witnesses believe was around $50,000 in cash. His family thought it would just be rose petals, but he had one last surprise to thank his community.
I want to talk about the hardest part to watch in the new Ruby Franke docuseries, because the way I wanted to scream every time Kevin was on the screen. So I cover a lot of dark but interesting and informative documentaries, so follow along if that's your thing. But this is a new docuseries about Ruby Franke, a famous YouTuber who is really abusing her children behind the scenes. But one of the people they spend a lot of time interviewing is Kevin, Ruby's husband and the father of the children she was abusing. And Kevin really tries to paint himself as this sad and brainwashed husband who just wanted his wife's affection and would do anything for it, including watching her manipulate and abuse their children, which he conveniently leaves out. The abuse really starts ramping up when she lets this fraud therapist Jody Hildebrandt live in her house with her family, but that's also when she asks Kevin to leave the family, which he does. And for the next year, he admits that he never saw his children, and he blocked a lot of them so they couldn't even communicate with him. And the doc doesn't touch on this, but if you read Sherry Franke's book, who's the oldest daughter, you learn that when Kevin stepped away from the family, there was an older man within the church that started abusing her. He weaseled his way into her life by claiming he was the only adult that really cared about her, and he was very controlling, including demanding that she share her location with him 24/7 so he could just see what she was up to. Meanwhile, her dad is nowhere to be found, so she had no one she could confide in. And the worst part for me is at the end when Kevin explains that he didn't really believe the cops when they said that they had rescued his children who had been abused for years by his wife. He figured that Ruby must be telling the truth. Maybe they really were possessed by demons. But then he sees the condition his kids are in and he fully believes that yes, there was abuse that happened. But then the documentary director asks him if he still loves Ruby, and without even a second thought, he says yes. After all this time, after all the abuse she did to his children, he still loved her. Anyways, read Sherry Franke's book if you can. It's a great companion piece to the docuseries and it gives a lot more information. And buy it if you're able to, because she does deserve to be supported as an author.
Chilling, man.
Joe Megler is a 22-year-old from Germany. As he was shaving one day, he accidentally nicked his cheek. A trail of blood started rolling down, but instead of getting scared, he was inspired. You see, Joe was a huge fan of Batman and absolutely loved the Joker. So instead of putting a band-aid on the cut, he made it bigger. Little by little, he stretched it even bigger until eventually there was a hole in his cheek. Today, Joe does everyday things like brushing his teeth through the hole and even eats food through it. Subscribe if you think this is gross.
That's crazy, bro. You got inspired by
Four disturbing
all over
facts
Christmas,
about your
man.
body. If your body's immune system finds out about your eyes, it will blind you. Yes, that is correct. Your eyes and your body have separate immune systems. And if for some reason your body's immune system discovers your eyes, it will attack them, sending you blind. You can get a condition called fatal familial insomnia. This is a condition where you cannot sleep for days and you begin to lose your mind bit by bit until you die. Your body is always fighting cancer. In your lifetime, your immune system destroys anywhere from 5 to 8 cancerous cells that do not self-destruct. Some cancers fool your immune system so they can grow and spread. If you have even a small brain trauma, your brain can reset, changing your likes, dislikes, and other aspects of your personality.
Whoa, I never knew that. Everything you like and dislike can just get changed like that on the flip of a dime. It's like you become a completely different person. The more you know, man. We learning today. That's what we like to do.
Scariest videos on the internet, part 4. This is a famous statue that is said to be haunted. And someone cut its eyes moving on camera.
Let's see. Oh, I definitely, y'all saw that? There was movement.
What in the night of the museum is this?
Or was that an edit? Or just a high class edit, bro?
Scary fact you wish you never knew.
There is a shack called the Devil's Toy Box in Louisiana, and for some reason people who go in lose their mind. Do you know the tingly feeling you get when you eat a pineapple?
Yeah.
Well, that's because the pineapple is eating you. It has an enzyme called bromelain, and that enzyme eats meat, which you're made of. Now you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click on share, slide all the way to the end, click more. And if any apps appear before your contacts, you should delete it immediately. Sharks have been around for 420 million years, meaning they have survived all 4 big mass extinctions, making them older than dinosaurs, Mount Everest, and even some trees on this planet. The person who invented homework came up with the idea as a punishment for students.
You are a slave. Let me explain why. We are being controlled in this world. Everything we do, every move we make is remotely controlled by these people. Every human is born with the pineal gland. The pineal gland is known as the third eye or the sixth sense. It enhances your spiritual senses. It makes you analyze information faster. It makes you take the right decisions. It makes you sleep better, and much more. These people don't want your pineal gland to be activated because you become smarter and stronger. They deactivate your pineal gland using fluoride. They add fluoride in everyday necessities we consume. Drinking water has fluoride, and it's been proven that fluoride is cancerous. What is the first thing you do in the morning? Brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Toothpaste contains fluoride. We are constantly shutting down this gland. Without this gland, we are more prone to weakness, staying up late, depression, and anger. Good news though, fluoride-free products exist.
Seekers, are y'all gonna make that switch? I definitely am, man. Fluoride, but like you said, the first thing you did is brush your teeth. That's the first thing you do in the morning, man. It's in these everyday products. They're trying to take out a sixth sense for pineal glands. Nah, man, we want ours open, bro. We will be making that switch.
This is how people react when they are told how long they will be in prison. Jacob Matthew Morgan, sentenced to 137 years in prison. Smith Riley, sentenced to life in prison without parole.
What did they do?
Cameron Herring, sentenced to 24 years in prison.
They had to do something heinous, man, to get those sentences.
They starved their 10-month-old baby. Sentenced to life in prison without parole.
Why does he look so shocked?
Dylan Shoemaker, sentenced to 985 years in prison. Nico Jenkins, sentenced to death.
He do not care. People reactions after they get sentenced, man, doesn't always amaze you because they act like their actions don't have consequences. Then they try to get all sad and upset. It's too late now. Gotta think before you act. That's an edit.
This teacher was caught doing it with an 8th grade student. And apparently it was almost daily. The kid was 13 years old and now she will serve 10 years in prison. This happened in Texas. The teacher behind me, her name is Alexandria Vera. She's 25 years old and this 13-year-old got her pregnant. She stated the relationship happened in the Instagram DMs and his family apparently approved of this relationship. The judge and the school district said that they want their teachers to teach students, not put their hands all over their students. She was originally going to get 30 years in prison, but the judge said, I don't think she's that bad, and gave her 10 years. Apparently this relationship blossomed in 2015 around summertime. The boy kept advancing, she kept denying, but eventually she gave in apparently. Prosecutors said based on evidence, they did it daily for 9 months straight. And apparently during the entire ordeal, to get away with this, she told her neighbors that the boy was her brother. And now it gets even weirder. She even moved his father in with her so she could pretend she was dating the father when in reality she was the kid. This was kind of a mask. She was also paying for the family's groceries and phone bill. This kid literally had a sugar mama. Now Alexandria Vera has a 6-year-old daughter that even called the 13-year-old kid her dad. What What an interesting case. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're from Houston, Texas, did you hear about this case around you guys? As always, these videos are for informational purposes only. Once again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I definitely feel like she should have served life for this. She knew exactly what she was doing, but the court system was pretty lenient on her.
Dark things Disney doesn't want you to know? Perfect.
That family's
So in
insane.
part 14 of this series, I talked about the deadly monorail crash that killed a 21-year-old worker at Disney. This isn't the first time that this ride has taken someone's life. The first death occurred in 1966 during the park's annual grad night. Pictured here is 19-year-old Thomas Guy Cleveland. He attempted to sneak into the park on that night. He successfully managed to climb over the park's 16-foot-high fence, and then he got onto the monorail tracks. But while on the track, the monorail train struck and killed him. It dragged his body 30 to 40 feet before stopping. More on this case in my next YouTube video. Subscribe so you don't miss out. Link in bio.
They still kept it up?
That you have to come up with $9 billion or face execution. Well, that is exactly what this woman is being told by a Vietnamese court right now. You see, earlier this year, Trong My Lan, who is a real estate tycoon and businesswoman, made global headlines after she was sentenced to death for committing one of the biggest frauds in global history. $44 billion. That's equivalent to roughly 9% of Vietnam's entire economy this year. Now of the 44 total, she's accused of embezzling $12 billion, and the court ruled this week that if she can pay back 3/4, her death sentence will be reduced to life in prison. So the question now is, can she come up with $9 billion to literally save her life? Verdict to the jury.
$9 billion or that sentence, man. Oh. She better not have spent all that money, bro. I don't know how did she got 44 billion, but if she don't come up with that 9 billion, sounds like she's cooked, bro. How do people be getting away with fraud that massive? We gotta dive deep into that rabbit hole, bro.
Count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Please be seated, Mr. A.
All counts. 1, 2, and 3. Boom, boom, boom. It's an edit, man. If you guys see any edit seekers, man, don't be afraid to call them out. Sometimes I might miss them, and y'all can catch on to it.
Would you pay $6 million for a banana? Well, someone did, and this jaw-dropping sale made people scratch their heads. I think we can all agree that we can call it the golden banana. That's right, a golden banana, because this rare fruit was auctioned off at Sotheby's in New York. But before you start Googling the nearest banana farm, let me clarify. This isn't your average potassium-packed snack. It was a piece of art. And guess what? The buyer was someone with deep pockets and a love for eccentric art. To the point that they don't mind spending this huge amount of money for a literal fruit. So, what do you get after spending this much money? Well, a banana with duct tape. Despite this, the price skyrocketed to a mind-blowing $6.2 million, and people on the internet lost it. And who was the lucky buyer? A savvy Chinese man who wasn't about to let anyone snatch away his golden prize. In the end, some say it's a statement. Others just want to know if the banana comes with a side of luxury dip. Sadly, no one knows.
We need to be artists, bro. Tape a piece of grape.
Let's take a look at the three biggest differences between Eastern and Western dragons. First up, appearance. The Western dragon has 4 legs, wings, and armor-like scales, whereas the Eastern dragon, while still capable of flight, has no wings and often no limbs at all. They're also much larger, going up to 100 feet or more. Number 2, abilities. Western dragons can breathe fire, fly, and are more intelligent than any mere mortal. But they're no match for the Eastern dragon, which possesses godlike powers such as the ability to grant wishes and control over the elements. And finally, perception. Western dragons are viewed as wild animals decimating noble knights and kingdoms, whereas Eastern dragons are viewed as deities equally deserving of our respect and fear. If you want to learn more about these creatures and even lead them into the field of battle, you should download Call of Dragons. It's a strategy game filled with cryptids you can capture, and the storyline, much like these dragons, is legendary. Comment which dragon is your favorite and download COD.
Clips you need.
So he was describing Shenron, bro.
Part 6. Octopus unscrewing the lid of a vase from the inside. clam digs into sand.
What?
Vegetables in Alaska can reach gigantic sizes due to the 20 hours of sunlight they receive every day.
That ain't no pumpkin, man.
How much a pumpkin has grown in 2 months.
Terrifier 3 is officially returning back to theaters on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We're also said to be getting an extended version, but the extended version is not what you think. With director Damien Leone saying a lot of fans want to see uncut versions of things that were quote-unquote missing from the movie. Scenes like Sienna retrieving the sword from the Terrifier. They also want to see Jonathan's unaliving. And more scenes of Art the Clown at the Beta Bash, where he used the chainsaw, you know what I'm talking about, with him flat out saying, we didn't shoot those scenes, and there's nothing that would have been extended about it. And that brings me to believe that we will never see Jonathan's unaliving ever in a Terrifier movie. It wasn't shot, it wasn't something that happened, unless, at the beginning of Terrifier 4, we see what actually happened to Jonathan. But I highly doubt that, because if they didn't shoot it during Terrifier 3, why would they shoot it for Terrifier 4? Also goes on to say that a lot of stuff that was quote-unquote missing are the really nice human moments between Sienna and her family. And a lot of great scenes that have to do with Gabby and Sienna's relationship, and how their bond is so strong. Which kind of makes sense, because we really didn't see much of their relationship on screen. We knew that Gabby loved Sienna. We didn't know the extent of their actual relationship. And for me, honestly, I would love to see those scenes. It would make the ending of the movie feel so much more real. Seeing how Sienna acted with losing absolutely everybody. Especially Gabby, if their relationship is as strong as Damien Leone is saying.
You guys gonna see an extended version of Terrifier 3? I remember when it beat the joke in the box office. That's just wild to think about, man. We see through these edits, bro. Okay. I know I don't do scary movies like that, Seekers, but they had a lot of choices. The Devil's House. There's some brave souls going in there, bro. I ain't going in that house. Not with a name like that. I am good. What did they find in there? Okay. Seems empty so far.
So this cop says that he was actually abducted by aliens. One night in Argentina, a police officer named Sergio Pucheta requested for backup from his base over the radio. According to the other police officers, he sounded terrified, but before the transmission cut out, he managed to say that there was something strange in the area and that he was going to investigate. When the other police officers got there, though, he was nowhere to be found. But the strange thing is that his motorcycle was there on the side of the road, along with his service handgun, his radio, and his cell phone. They looked everywhere for him, and then they ended up finding some footprints. So they followed these footprints into this wooded area, and they noticed that the footprints started to grow farther and farther apart from each other. And then all of a sudden, they disappeared. The police officers were baffled, and a search team was called to look for the missing cop. They ended up finding him the next day, 12 miles away from the area of his initial disappearance. He was found by a local farmer on the side of the road, and he was completely traumatized. He was curled up in the fetal position. They took him to the hospital, and when he eventually calmed down, he told the other officers a terrifying account of what had happened to him. He said that when he got to the area that he went to investigate, he bumped into two strange humanoid beings with glowing red eyes. He said that one of these beings spoke to him telepathically and ordered him to disarm his weapon and disable his radio and cell phone. This is when Pucheta said that he got scared and he decided to make a run for it. He said that he ran as fast as he could, but as he started to run, he started to feel like he was floating. And that's all he remembered before finding himself on the side of the road. Even more terrifying is that after this whole event, Pucheta decided to do hypnotherapy. And after the hypnotherapy, he said that he remembered that he was indeed abducted by these beings. He says that he remembers being beamed up to an alien spaceship and that the walls were luminous and bright. And then he says that he remembers being placed on a table or bed. Unfortunately, for police officer Sergio Pucheta, he was let go after this whole incident.
She was upset that she
Why?
missed her hair appointment, so she took her father's life because of it. On the morning of October 1st, 2021, 18-year-old Megan Amirowicz was busy preparing for her 18th birthday, which was going to take place at a hotel later that night. Since it was her 18th birthday, it was kind of a big deal for her, and she wanted to look her best, so she scheduled an appointment at a salon to get her hair done. As usual, her father, Conrad, was her chauffeur, and he was supposed to be taking her to the salon. Unfortunately for both of them, Conrad was a heavy drinker, and he had been drinking that early morning, so once he laid down on the couch, he ended up falling asleep. Megan tried her hardest to wake her father up, and then she realized that she was probably going to miss her appointment, and this made her blood boil. Instead of her calling an Uber to go to her destination, she decided to do something way different. Megan had grabbed a container of drain cleaner and poured it all over her father's body from head to toe. After that, then she doused him with water. Because of this combination, it caused a chemical reaction which burned away his skin. A short while later, one of Megan's friends arrived at the home. They took one look at Conrad and immediately called 911 in Oakland County, Michigan. Conrad was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. He told the medical staff that his daughter was responsible for this whole thing, but later he told investigators that he had no memory of what had happened. As Conrad was fighting for his life in the ICU, the detectives were busy gathering evidence. Once they had spoke with family members, Megan was arrested and charged. Not long after, Megan was released after posting bail. Although Conrad had survived the initial attack, he had to have both of his legs amputated, his kidneys shut down, and he had damage to his lungs. On March 6, 2022, after 3 days of being removed from life support, Conrad had passed away from his injuries. The whole time that Conrad was in the hospital, they would not let Megan go see her father for his safety, and she was very upset by it. About a week later, on March 11th, Megan's bail was rescinded, and the charges against her were upgraded to murder. She was immediately taken into custody, and she had to stay there until her trial in June of 2023. Although Conrad wasn't the biological father of Megan, he loved her so much. She was the apple of his eye, and while he was laying in his deathbed, he still tried to protect her when the law came calling for her. But with all the evidence that investigators had, it pointed to Megan as the one who burned her father alive. On July 25th, 2023, Megan was found guilty of murder. The judge on the case believed that because of Megan's age, she didn't realize what she had done, so she only sentenced her a 1-year sentence. While on parole, she would have to undergo a mental health assessment every 6 months. Megan would also be fitted for a GPS tracking device, have a strict curfew of 9 p.m., and this probation period would end in July 2028. We made it towards the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know down below if you agree with this sentencing, and if you have any requests for me, let me know down below as well.
Did you guys know that these Disney stars were arrested and some even spent time in prison? Starting with the one that shocked me the most, Phil Lewis, who played Mr. Mosby on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. He went to prison for manslaughter. So in 1991, way before The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody aired, Phil killed a 21-year-old girl while drinking and driving. But he was released early and only served 1 year because of the work he did in prison. Next, we got Debbie Ryan, who played Bailey Pickett on The Sweet Life on Deck. When Debbie was 22 years old, she was arrested and charged with a DUI after she crashed a car with another person and severely injured them. Okay, this one's crazy. Back in 2018, Adam Hicks, who starred in Zeke and Luther, was arrested after going around pointing guns at people and robbing them with the help of his girlfriend, Danny. He ended up getting only 5 years in prison, and now he's pursuing his music career and he's on TikTok. Now, this one definitely caught me off guard because Mitchell Musso played such an innocent kid on Hannah Montana. Montana, but he was arrested for public intoxication on August 26th of this year when he apparently stole a bag of chips from a store, but he denies this ever happened. Mitchell was also arrested back in 2011 when he was 20 years old for a DUI. Let me know which one surprised you the most, because mine was Mr. Mosby.
Yeah, it was Mr. Mosby for me as well. You never would have guessed that.
Do you think ghosts can help solve cold cases? Well, throughout history, there's been reports of ghosts coming back to tell their loved ones who killed them, like the story of Fred Fisher. And if you're interested in these kind of stories, I just did a podcast episode on the most famous one. So in 1826, an Australian man by the name of Fred Fisher disappeared into thin air. But this never sat right with his best friend John, because Fred seemed to have left in the middle of the night and didn't take any of his stuff with him. Fred's neighbor claimed that he had gone back to England and had named him the power of attorney. And then his neighbor starts selling all of Fred's stuff. So John starts thinking that something is not right. So one night, months later, John is walking down the street, he's had a few drinks, and right when he's passing Fred's property, he sees a ghostly figure standing in his yard. It looks exactly like Fred, but he's completely pale with like this dead stare. And the figure just lifts one hand slowly and points past John to a creek that's behind him. So the next day, John goes down to the creek right around where this apparition was telling him to go, and sure enough, he finds Fred's body. Not only did this ghost lead John to Fred's body, but it also led to the arrest of the sketchy neighbor for his murder. This full story and more this week on the pod.
Ghosts coming back and telling their side of the story wasn't in the...
In 1992, the body of Aglina Diaz de Leon was found right here in this church courtyard. My fiance and I host the podcast Murder in America, and we decided to visit this church on a sunny day last month so we could tell Aglina's story to all of you guys. In 1992, Aglina was found right here in the courtyard of the building, nude, and her throat had been slashed after she was strangled. For 10 years after the crime, nobody had a clue who killed Aglina, and it was a national mystery. That is, until one day in 2002, when police finally got a lead through DNA. Witnesses saw a man named Guadalupe Sandoval near the scene of the crime the night that it happened, and DNA linked him 10 years later to the murder. In the meantime, he had married and raised 2 kids. You never know who you're marrying, I guess.
Truly don't, and it sounds like he got away with it too. Sickening.
The Muffin Man is actually a serial killer. You know the Muffin Man nursery rhyme, right? But did you know it was based on a dark, true story? 1 second. Chocolate chip. Tastes like your mama booted. But yeah, the story is darker than you think. Because in the 1800s, there was a man named Frederick Thomas Linwood. And he would wait lurking in alleys, looking for his next victims. And they would always be kids. You see, he would kidnap them and unalive them, luring them in with muffins. I mean, what kid wouldn't want a tasty snack? When the townspeople got word of what was happening, they decided to come together and figure out a way to prevent this, to spread awareness amongst the kids and keep them safe, warning them about the Muffin Man, who was a danger on Drury Lane. You're walking past the alleyway, and the Muffin Man gets you. Your fourth act sees this and tries to rescue you. Let me know who it is, and let me know if you think you'd be doomed or not. Anyways, he's one of the first documented serial killers in the world. And everyone still teaches this song to their kids, even children TV shows. And yet nobody knows that...
The Muffin Man. I heard about that because of Shrek, bro. You know, the Muffin Man scene between Gingerbread Man and Lord Farquaad. Classic.
Nobody has been able to explain this creepy viral video. For the past 11 years, a man who runs a TikTok account by the name of Dude, My House is Haunted has been pretty confident that there has been some paranormal activity within his home. He claims that ever since his wife passed away, there have been some strange and unusual things going on. So eventually he decided to leave cameras out and record what was happening and post it onto TikTok, which is the footage that you are about to see. In this video, you can see a chair seemingly moving on its own. It moves somewhat slowly until it suddenly is violently pulled into the corner by the kitchen. A mysterious, shadowy figure can be seen moving behind the chair, and then suddenly out of nowhere, the chair is thrown into the kitchen. Now, of course, we're not really sure what happened in this video, but I'm having a hard time coming up with an explanation for this one.
Or it could just be an edit. Simple as that.
Insanely dark facts and things that have happened at Disney World. When Disney had first opened way back in the 70s, Walt Disney had originally hired spies. He would station them around the park so they could eavesdrop on the guests and get a feel for how they actually liked the experience. It's pretty much common knowledge that Disney does have an underground tunnel system, but did you know that that system runs a full 9 acres under the park, and people have actually gotten lost down there? Roughly 10 or so years ago, there was an incident that was reported near Space Mountain when a guest tried to sneak on a duffel bag. When employees found out and they asked to search it, they found inside a 6-month-old baby. Why this parent was trying to sneak a baby onto a roller coaster, we do not know. In a lesser-known incident that Disney actually covered up pretty well, in 2004, a 38-year-old cast member who was playing Pluto was run over by the Beauty and the Beast float during the opening parade. Although clearly deceased at the scene, Disney refused to declare the death until the body was brought outside of the park.
The things companies to do for money, man.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Part 18. A man from Queens once spent 5 months in jail completely unaware that his bail was just $2. Since spiders molt, when you see what you might think is a dead spider, it could just be that the spider left behind its exoskeleton and is now bigger than before, around with a bunch of poop inside of them. Scientists accidentally killed the world's oldest living animal, which was a clam that lived to be 507 years old. Statistically speaking, at least one person who comments on this video will not be alive tomorrow. The real reason you shouldn't eat raw cookie dough isn't because of getting sick from eating raw eggs. It's because you shouldn't eat raw flour, which contains fecal matter from all the birds flying over the field and pooping on the wheat.
I bet you didn't know that these 3 myths aren't true. So the first one is that if you swallow chewing gum, your stomach will take 7 years to digest it. And that's just not true. And that's totally cap, because if you swallow some gum, it'll only take about 2 to 4 days to pass through your entire system.
Wow.
The second myth is that cracking your knuckles will give you arthritis. Scientists have not yet discovered a correlation between cracking your knuckles and arthritis. However, over time it can lessen your grip strength. And at number 3, we have the myth that sugar makes kids hyper. I totally thought this one was true, but scientists say that it's completely false. While it has been proven that sugar can change your mood and make you feel more active, there's no real connection between kids being hyper and the consumption of sugar.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna have to call cap on that last one, bro. Because if you get some kids some sugar, bro, they'll be freaking hyper, man, running all around the place, man. I don't believe that last one. Like I said, when we watch these videos together with you guys, we always gotta do our own research. Where he at? The middle of the night. Could not be me.
AC is not working. Look at everyone. So many people, they are using these magazines. AC is not working at all. And as usual, your TV screens are also not working. Neither this button for calling the cabin crew. Nothing is working. Nothing. Not even the light is working. See. This is what you are providing. And as usual, that is why Air India is considered as one of the worst airlines in the world.
We all know how that ended.
These are facts that make death even scarier. Up first, since the first ever human being, about 108 billion people have died. If you just stop and think about that for a second, it's actually impossible to wrap your head around. Every single human being you've ever read about has lived on this planet and died. Next up, we've all heard the phrase, he died of old age. But that is a complete myth. You don't actually die from old age, but instead all the sicknesses and diseases that come with getting old. Getting old is actually awful and is probably one of the worst things about being a human. Finally, by the time you finish this video, 150 to 200 people will have died. People die every second of the day, which should make you stop and appreciate your life right now, because it could be gone within seconds.
You're spitting at the end, man. We gotta appreciate the time we have now.
Can you imagine living with someone that you know is trying to end your life? This hidden camera captures a moment this woman puts bleach inside her husband's coffee maker multiple times a day. This is Robbie Johnson, and he began setting up cameras all around his house when he started to notice that his coffee was tasting a little off. He wasn't really expecting to catch anything, but when he looked back at the footage, he was shocked. His wife Melody is seen pouring a substance inside his coffee maker every single day before he brewed the coffee. Robbie got testing strips, and each time it tested positive for chlorine. At this time, Robbie and Melody were in the process of a divorce, but they were still living together. Robbie pretended to drink his coffee every morning and continued to gather evidence so that he can go to police. But when he showed police all this footage, they said that they couldn't see exactly what Melody was pouring into the coffee maker, so he couldn't prove it. So Robbie had to set up even more cameras around the house with different angles so that it can prove that Melody was in fact poisoning him. Melody was charged with attempted murder, and I bet this guy will never let anyone else make him a coffee again.
Damn right. Not after seeing that.
Today I'm going to be asking my haunted doll about S-walkers. I won't say their name because people don't like saying their name. So if you don't know what an S-walker is, basically it's this creature that's been seen throughout history. A lot of Native American culture believes in these walkers and believe that they are demonic entities that kind of pose themselves as animals or different types of species. So I'm going to ask my haunted doll what she thinks of them, if she believes in them. The link to the spirit box app I use is in my bio. Lola, do you believe in S-walkers? Yes, she does. Have you ever come across one before? Yes. That was a really quick yeah. Have you ever been attacked by an S-walker? No, that's good. They're dangerous. Are they dangerous to be around? Yes. I feel her getting very anxious about it. I think that's confirmation that she's anxious. Lola, do you think any of our followers have ever had an experience with S-walkers? Yeah, she thinks that maybe some of you have. Will you keep our followers safe from these creatures? Yes, she will. She'll always keep you guys safe. She'll do the best she can.
I don't know. What was that device just twisting how she communicated with that dog?
What's a missing persons case that still keeps you up at night? I always think about the disappearance of Nicholas Downey and how he completely disappeared after his rental car was found abandoned. So this is 37-year-old Nicholas Downey, and he was last seen on February 27th, 2023 in Bristol, Florida. At the time he was working in Bradenton, but he'd taken a week off to go and visit his wife Holly, who was staying at a rehabilitation center in Mississippi. For the trip, Nicholas rented a Tesla through the Turo app. He was on his way back home when on February 26th, he pulled off of Interstate 10 to recharge the Tesla behind a McDonald's in Marianna, Florida. Security footage shows that someone exited the vehicle to charge it, but the footage was too blurry to know if it was actually Nicholas getting out of the car. The person then gets back into the car before pulling on a State Road 71 heading south instead of getting back on the interstate. While this was happening, the car's owner was watching its progress on the Turo app and saw the direction it was heading. This worried the owner because the car wasn't heading back to Tampa as planned, and he already had the car scheduled to be rented out by another customer the following day. So he sent Nicholas a text message to make sure that he was okay, which would have showed up on the car's dashboard, but he never got a response back. Nicholas was scheduled to go back to work the morning of February 27th, but he never showed up. Instead, that morning, the Tesla he was renting was found abandoned in Liberty County, parked between Turkey Creek and Prison Road. This area is, I guess, known as the Stoke site. But Nicholas was nowhere to be found. The car only had a little bit of charge left and the windshield was damaged. Authorities found that the car at some point had driven under a cable, and this was confirmed when they found the cable in question about 1.5 miles away with the car's white paint on it. The police contacted the vehicle's owner, who was then able to remotely unlock it. And inside the car, police found 2 phones, one belonging to Nicholas and one belonging to his wife, who wasn't allowed to have a personal phone at the rehab center. Also inside the car was a change of clothes, a McDonald's receipt, a drone that Nicholas used for work, and an unknown substance. Authorities searched the area surrounding the car by land and air, and they even brought in tracking dogs, but no trace of Nicholas has ever been found. According to a sheriff that was on the scene, he said that there were hardly any footprints surrounding the car, and that something isn't adding up. His family didn't even know about his disappearance until a few days later on March 3rd when his wife was allowed to call him, but a deputy answered instead. The car rental was without contact and done through the Turo app, so the owner of the car never actually met Nicholas. And according to Nicholas's mom, she last spoke to him him around 8:30 the night he went missing, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She mentioned that Nicholas did struggle with alcohol and drugs in the past, but he's never just not reached out. They talk almost every day, so it's not like him to just disappear. It's now been a year and Nicholas is still missing. If you have any information about his disappearance at all, please contact the number on the screen.
He just vanished. That was a weird story. Through that Turo app, that's when they be using to rent cars, right? Luxury cars. I've heard about that.
This might be the scariest thing that ever happened to America. We all know that America had a lot of scary things happen to it. But this has to be the scariest thing ever. On August 29th, 1968, every single TV in America shut down. But a demonic whispering was coming from every TV in America. Many people believed that it was the devil trying to get across some message. But nobody really understood it. This lasted for about 25 seconds, then all the TVs came back on. To this day, nobody knows what caused it or why it happened, but everybody believes it was the works of the devil.
Glad I wasn't around during that.
December 29th, 1986, a California Highway Patrol officer named Craig Pyer drove his cruiser down Interstate 15 in San Diego, California. With him was an NBC News reporter filming a segment about highway travel safety that was set to air later that night. At around 4 a.m. the previous morning, a 20-year-old college student named Kara Knott had been found strangled to death in a creek right near the Mercy Road exit. And so as Officer Pyer passed by the Mercy Road exit and continued down Interstate 15, as they filmed, he began talking about the basics of highway travel safety.
Anything could happen. Being a female, you could be raped, robbed if you're a male, all the way to where you could be killed.
As this particular segment was filmed, Officer Pyer was looking ahead and he noticed there was a car pulled over on the shoulder of the highway with its hazards on. So he turned to the news crew and basically said, look, here's a chance for us to actually show what to do in case your car breaks down on the highway. Officer Pyer walked over to the passenger side door of this car and asked him to explain what happened to your car. The driver said he had run out of gas and then gotten stranded on the side of the road. And then he had left his car and walked to a gas station to get a gas can. And all the way back, he put the gas into his car, but his car still wouldn't start. This driver is doing basically exactly what he shouldn't be doing, according to the safety tips Officer Pyer had given. And so on camera, he basically says to this guy, do you understand how dangerous it is to have left your car like that and walked alone on this highway? And the driver just kind of looked at him and shrugged like, yeah, I guess so. After that, Officer Pyer and the news crew wrapped up filming. They told him what time to expect his segment to air on NBC that night. And when Officer Pyer's actual segment aired on TV, there were a few people, when they watched this clip, that noticed something very specific. And within an hour of this clip airing on TV, those few people were calling the police in droves to tell them, we know what happened to Kara Knott. It would turn out all the clues the police needed to solve the Kara Knott murder case were right there in that 1.5 minute long video. Because what happened to Kara had almost happened to over 24 other women in San Diego. The other 24 women who encountered the same person, the killer. They were terrorized and tortured and held hostage for a couple of hours, but eventually were let go. But Kara wasn't. During her encounter, at some point, the killer clubbed her over the head and then strangled her to death with a rope. Now, the killer at first had gotten away with this until they were featured on that 1.5 minute long video. And some of those women who had survived their attack, they're watching this segment and suddenly their attacker is on TV. And so put that all together and they thought, boom, that's the person who killed Kara Knott. And sure enough, the police would follow up on these tips and they would confirm that the man in the video was Kara's killer. And Kara's killer was none other than Officer Craig Pyer. Officer Pyer was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison.
I was the officer. That was a plot twist. You give him safety tips, but he was doing those things himself.
What did Buzz Aldrin see in Antarctica? Let's rewind. So in 2016, a satellite got an image of what experts believed to be a huge pyramid in Antarctica. Now, if this was in fact a pyramid, it would be the largest pyramid ever found on Earth. Bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, which was about 230 meters wide. This pyramid in Antarctica would be 2,000 meters wide. Now, apparently in 2016, Buzz Aldrin and a crew got together and went to Antarctica to explore and check out this colossal pyramid. They wanted to see it for themselves. But this is where it gets crazy. While on the expedition, Buzz Aldrin suffered a heart attack. He was hospitalized for days. But when he fully recovered and left the hospital, he tweeted something strange, but then quickly deleted it. It said, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." Now, what the hell he talking about? Cause I don't want to find out. Someone close to Buzz said they had a talk with him and he said this.
Buzz did say one thing. He just said, we thought out things we shouldn't. And I went, what do you mean by that?
Come on, man. What did they find? Was it aliens, a Nephilim giant, other humans? If it is a pyramid, who built it and what was living in it?
You got contact with aliens, bro?
Yo, what's up? These are Kids That Killed, Part 5. Today on our list, Aaron Campbell. On July 2nd, 2018, 6-year-old Alicia McFale was nowhere to be found throughout her house. Her parents searched her room, the living room, and every other part of the house, but she could not be found. But the crazy thing was her bicycle was still parked out on the curb, so she couldn't have gone far. I mean, she was only 6 years old and didn't have a habit of running away, so her parents began to worry. But it turns out that this 16-year-old psychopath Aaron Campbell had actually contacted Alicia's dad the night before trying to buy some drugs, and when he went to pick him up and Alicia's dad wouldn't answer, he snuck inside the home, grabbed Alicia while she was sleeping, and kidnapped her. Alicia then woke up while she was being carried around by her kidnapper, and he told her that she had nothing to worry about and that he was a friend of her father's and he was going to get her home safely. But that was far from the truth. It'd be shortly after the young girl woke up that the 16-year-old would move on to brutally beat this young 3-foot-tall 6-year-old girl. It wouldn't be until the morning after this incident where the parents and neighbors would have a search party going out to look for the young girl, and they would find her dumped in a woodland area about 15 minutes away from their home with over 117 different injuries on her body. It was said that they found trace evidence of semen on this girl's body, and it was even claimed by forensics that she was beaten long after she had already died. It was later found out by the police during an investigation that Aaron Campbell was the one who committed these horrific acts on this young girl, and at the age of 20, when he was in prison already, he actually got beat and his front tooth went through the top of his lip. Sorry, Aaron, but you got what was coming to you.
This family was last seen in 2022, but have never been seen since. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of the Bernstein family. Viewer discretion is advised. Pictured here in the middle is 33-year-old mother Abigail Bernstein. Pictured here with her two sons, 11-year-old Kohberger Bernstein and 8-year-old Kush Bernstein. So this case originates on the island of Oahu, specifically in Honolulu. Abigail had allegedly met a man online and they planned to take a year-long trip, a boat trip. In October of 2022, Abigail and her two children were last seen here at the Alawai Boat Harbor in Honolulu, Hawaii. The identity of the man that she met and was going on this trip with, I don't think has been made public. I can't, even the FBI, website doesn't have any information on him. But what the FBI has stated is that the boat returned in 2023. I'm assuming that means with the man, but again, I'm not 100% sure. What is sure, however, is that Abigail and her two sons were not on that boat. This entire family has not been seen since they left that boat dock in 2022. Once they were reported missing, the FBI becomes involved, and the FBI would find out that Abigail and her two kids were living a very nomadic lifestyle. They completely cut off, or Abigail did, cut off all communications with her family. So it was literally just her and the two kids. Her two sons were not enrolled in school at the time of their disappearance. Neither of the two kids, or Abigail especially, had a cell phone. They cut off their cell phone before they left. And again, I have to assume that this man they went with was questioned and talked to. I don't know what, if they did, I don't know what he said. It's very strange because the FBI is saying that they don't have any evidence of foul play. However, they cannot rule foul play out. They just don't have proof of it. And most importantly, they don't have this entire family. Where did they go? Some believe that they, could have just started a new life somewhere on another island. Abigail had connections not only to Oahu, but also on the Big Island. She also had connections to people in Naples, Florida, Petoskey, Michigan, and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I can only assume that they have investigated those angles as well. The hope is that they are just living off the grid somewhere. And if it was just Abigail, they would probably not be pushing this as hard because, you know, she's a 33-plus-year-old adult. But there are 2 children involved here, and there is concern for their well-being, not necessarily because of Abigail, just because nobody knows where they are or what they're doing, but somebody out there has to have seen them. And as badly as Abigail may not want to be found, people just need to know where these kids are at. Someone somewhere out there knows the truth, and perhaps that someone is you. If you have any information on the whereabouts of Abigail Bernstein or her 2 sons, please contact the Honolulu, Hawaii FBI office at 808-673-2719.
She sounds like she just banned and she trying to live off the
She
grid.
ate a poisonous cake that was left at her doorstep. 17-year-old Ana Neves was from Brazil, and she was described as a quiet girl who had a few close friends. Secretly, one of Anna's best friends was actually jealous of her, and she was planning something sinister. On May 30th of 2025, a guy delivered a package with a cake inside to Anna's home. Anna wasn't home at the time, so her sister took in the package. Anna arrived home later that evening around 6 p.m. and her sister was so excited to show her this cake because it had a note that said, "A treat for the most beautiful girl I've ever seen." Anna was flattered because she believed this was from a secret admirer, and as she was eating this cake, she had no idea that that was a big mistake. Less than an hour after eating that cake, she started to vomit violently and have severe diarrhea. The following day, her symptoms got worse and her father rushed her to the hospital. Medical staff told her that she had food poisoning, so she was given medicine and hooked up to an IV drip, and slowly she started to get better. Soon she was discharged and sent home because it seemed like she was back to normal. But later that day, once she was home, she fell on her bathroom floor and suffered a cardiac arrest. Once emergency services arrived to her home, she had passed away. Anna's family was trying to figure out how this could have even happened to her, and that's when Anna's sister remembered that there was a strange guy who had dropped off this delivery. Her family contacted the police, and they were able to determine that this cake was bought at a local pastry shop named Menina Trufa. Owner of the shop spoke with police, and she stated that an order was made for this cake and that an unknown delivery guy from an app had picked it up and delivered it. Police tracked down the guy who delivered this cake, and he was able to get the address of the person who ordered this cake, and it ended up being Anna's best friend. That friend was brought in for questioning, and at first she denied everything and stated that she had nothing to do with her friend's death, but after hours of questioning with the police, she admitted to everything and stated that she had laced the cake with arsenic that she had bought online for $11.50. She stated that she only meant to scare Anna and didn't mean to harm her at all. She ended up stating that she did this to someone else by sending them a poisonous cake as well because 2 of her boyfriends left her for this girl. This other victim became extremely ill, but fortunately she survived. This friend was sent to a young offenders institution, and her identity is currently being hidden, and there is no updates on any kind of sentencing.
Sometimes, man, your friends aren't your friends. Sad fact. She was jealous of her friend, so she sent her that cake. Jealous, she'll drive you to do something.
This is a
dark
true
things.
horrifying story of Hamdan School in Uganda. This school is an Islamic boarding school for girls. It was donated by one of the royal family members of Dubai 22 years ago. This story was submitted by Afra. An Arabic girl back in 2009 was a student at this high school. She knew that the school was haunted and that there was a graveyard right behind the school. And she heard rumors of many incidents where girls were possessed by jinns. But everything else about the school seems fine, because it's one of the most successful Islamic boarding schools in that region. But that does not deny the fact that jinns may live inside the school. Afra experienced something, and being in her 30s today, this one incident will always haunt her. Afra had a mutual friend that was a student in that same school. She was regularly possessed by one jinn. Out of all the religious students, she was one of the very few that didn't really care about the Islamic education. She always used to party, drink, hangs out with guys, and the jinn that used to possess her was surprisingly a Muslim. He was just furious that she used to disobey her family and her religion. They brought her to one of the halls in the school and they started a ruqya session. Afra was there witnessing the whole thing. After many attempts of trying to make this jinn speak, he finally responded. I am possessing this girl because she disobeys. I will not leave until she changes. They were all shocked and they proceed with the recitation. The moment they stop, just for a few seconds, the possessed girl stares at Afra. Who is this girl? Why is she very quiet? She is very pretty, very nice, but I cannot go near her. Afra froze in her place. She felt numb all around and she was not able to move a single muscle. The Imam was intrigued, so he asks the jinn, why can't you go near her? What is stopping you? It was a back and forth questioning. The jinn kept saying, I can't. Why can't you? Until it responded. There is someone in front of her with light. What does that mean? They ask. There is someone in front of her with light. I can't go near her. They couldn't interpret what this was exactly. It could have been the veil of light from the Adhkar. But regardless, Afra will never forget the demon's eyes staring deep into her soul, wanting to possess her.
You guys think of that, man? You definitely saw some movement of those objects with those edits, or were those just like legit cases, I guess, of paranormal activity going around on those objects, man? Those statues? It's very creepy and eerie. You guys know what to do.
Casper was born in the 1800s, and his mother actually passed away while she was giving birth to him. So he was raised by his father, and apparently his father was a really good man. He treated Casper really well, was a very loving father. He always wanted to make his own son happy and would basically do anything for him. Well, there was this one Christmas where Casper begged his father to buy him a sled. So, of course, because his father loved him so much, he went out and bought him a sled, and Casper was...
What happened? You know the story of Casper the Goose? It happened because of a sled? Alright. How was this his dog?
Dream. I got everything I wanted, but when I wake up I see you with me.
Put your phone in your mouth for like a year.
If you're alone right now, don't watch this video. In the winter of 2018, a man who was living alone in the mountains wakes up to find a red ball sitting on his front yard. He assumed the only neighbor he had must have kids, and so he kicks the ball over the fence, goes inside, doesn't think anything of it. That night, he wakes up to the sound of kids laughing outside of his window. He goes outside to check on them because it's the middle of the night, and there's no kids anywhere, but that red ball is back on his property. So he picks it up, brings it in his house, and goes back to bed. The next morning, he goes over to his neighbor's house to let them know that their kids were out in his yard in the middle of the night. But it turns out his neighbor is just some old man who lives alone, and there aren't any kids anywhere in the area. That night, he wakes up again to the sound of kids on his property, and when he looks outside, there's no kids, but that red ball is back on his property. Panicked, he runs downstairs to make sure the one he brought in is still inside, and it's gone. He checked every window and door, and everything was still locked. It didn't make any sense. He decides to look out the window one more time, and off in the distance is some weird, stiff figure watching him.
So is that somebody playing like a prank on him, or that red ball was legit haunted? He took it inside the house, but when he go to look for it again, it was gone. That one gets the mile
I'm
turner.
gonna ruin your childhood. Peter Pan was a crazy psychopath that trapped little kids in Neverland. He killed them before they grew up, which is why they could never leave as adults. Captain Hook was one of the Lost Boys that escaped Neverland, which explains why Peter Pan attacked Captain Hook and fed his arm to the crocodile. Which means, the whole time, Peter Pan was the bad guy. I'm sorry, guys.
Childhood freaking exposed.
Oh, like, Alexis has been gone for so freaking long trying to actually boo.
Okay, but like... Okay.
The hell is that attacking them? They was all in the woods camping. They like watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. Some out of nowhere just freaking attack them looking for Alexis. Cause she was using the bathroom out there. Maybe it could have been an animal of some sort. I don't know.
Did we dig a hole to hell in 1989? In 1989, geologists were digging the Kola borehole, which is now known as the largest hole in the world, measuring at 7.5 miles.
Damn.
It's said that they stopped digging when temperatures rose too high, around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. But the story goes that the geologists heard the sounds of suffering souls within the hole, which gave it the name the Well to Hell. They recorded sounds of masses of people screaming in torment and agony from this hole. It's said that then scientists watched in horror as a massive cloud burst from out of the ground. The story goes that this cloud then formed into a monstrous bat, and "I have conquered" was written across the sky. I'm now going to play a recording of the sounds that were heard in this hole. Check out part 2 for the rest of the story, and here's this disturbing audio clip.
Here is very disturbing indeed.
It sounds like it's based off Stranger Things.
This story's called Help Me. A Macedonian family have been travelling through America. After being out late one night, their little girl curls up in the booth of a restaurant and falls asleep. She later wakes up in the back seat of the car. Still dazed and confused, she sees them pull into a doctor's clinic. While in the doctor's, the girl struggles to understand anything that's being said. The woman turns and says, "Where's the usual doctor?" And calmly, the doctor turns and says, "Well, I'm filling in today." Angry, the mother says, "Well, my daughter's sick and I think she's got food poisoning." When he talks to the girl in English, he doesn't get a response. The mother says she only speaks Macedonian, and the doctor turns and says "Dobro" in Macedonian. The girl's eyes light up. He leans down and says, "Are you okay? Have they hurt you yet?" The girl says, "No, but that's not my mum. I'm so scared." He looks at the mum, who's confused, and says, "I'll have to examine her." As she lays on the table, he says, "I'm a policeman, sweetie. These people have drugged you. They've also taken my daughter, and I need you to go with them so I can find her." She hops down from the bed, and in total fear, she leaves with the woman.
What? It was like an undercover story or something? What happened to the guy in orange, man? I was paying close attention to him. I don't know if I'll spot it. Y'all tell me down below, man. We seek it, so let's help each other out. Did you guys spot anything wrong with that video?
Yeah, something traumatic happened that changed my life. Check.
Panic Pete. That's the toy you squeeze, right? Is that an edit?
Today we'll be talking about the slit-mouthed woman. The slit-mouthed woman is a spirit known for wearing a face mask that approaches her victims by asking them if they think she's pretty. If you answer with no, she'll kill you with a sharp weapon that she carries around. If you say yes, she'll take off her mask and ask you, "Am I pretty now?" If you say no, she'll kill you with the sharp weapon. And if you say yes, she'll cut your mouth just like hers. The only known way to avoid her is to answer with maybe. This will confuse her and give you a chance to run away. But running doesn't always work because she tries to appear in front of you as you try to escape.
Okay.
Most unusual deaths in human history, Part 2. In 1975, a man in England named Alex Mitchell sat down to watch some TV after a long day's work laying down brick. He then tuned in to watch his favorite TV show, The Goodies. The Goodies were a trio of British comedians who had their own TV show from the 70s to the 80s. They were known for their sketches and physical comedy. However, Alex was particularly amused by this episode's sketch, where a kilted Scotsman battles a man wielding a tube filled with sausage. Once Alex started laughing, he found himself unable to quit. Several minutes later, he was still laughing, and when you laugh for 6 minutes straight, your heart rate begins to increase rapidly. 15 minutes passed. As Alex continued to laugh, his heart rate began to increase even more, causing him to rapidly lose oxygen and him to lose control of his sphincter muscles. 20 minutes later, his body became urgently deprived of oxygen, and he had a massive stroke, causing him to die of laughter.
Dying of laughter. What the hell? You've always heard, you know, that saying that like laughter is the cure to everything, but seems like even if you laugh too much, that can be it. I've never heard of that before, man. That's the first time hearing a case like that. Passed away because you was laughing too much? That's one of the most bizarre and insane cases we've heard yet. This definitely has to be in the top 10 now.
This sounds totally made up until you listen to the police report. In the early 90s, a teenage girl started to see these shadowy figures that would come into a room at night and crawl all around her room and even grab at her legs. At the same time, her health began to rapidly deteriorate, which ultimately led to her death, which doctors never understood. A few days after her death, her sister woke up to a whistling sound and saw a creature crawling around her room with no face. The same night, her mom was ripped out of bed by someone. The father calls the police, who come over, they search the house, they don't find anything, it's all quiet. As they're about to leave, they hear something. Horrifying screams coming out of the bedroom. They run inside, no one's in there, but there are these huge gashes on the wall that were not there before. The police get out of there. In the police report that was filed immediately after this house call, the chief inspector and the 3 officers that were there that night swear they saw and heard the same things as the family, which means the police officially believed that the house was haunted.
4K in writing. True case.
When you finish this video, you're going to Google 2 words. In 2014, 2 Dutch college students were staying in Panama when they decided to take their host family's dog out for a walk. The dog returned, but the girls didn't. After 10 weeks without any leads, a local woman turned in a blue backpack that contained the girls' cell phones and their camera. Using their call log, they were able to determine that the girls would attempt to reach emergency services 77 times, all unsuccessful, starting just hours into their trip. It was also determined that 5 days after those 77 calls, somebody tried unsuccessfully several times to unlock the girls' phones. But the most distressing thing is what was found on the camera. The first set was taken on the day they left and they were totally normal. The second set was taken in the middle of the night over a week after they had left, and it showed all their belongings neatly laid out on a rock, and it showed one of the girls who appeared to be hurt. They found their remains spread out around the area where the backpack was found, and some of their bones appeared to have been bleached. There is still no official cause of death or explanation as to what happened.
Gotta be careful, man. Like, especially when you traveling to these other parts of the country, man. You never know who's watching you. Said they try to call 77 times. Very eerie. It was all set up all over the place, man. They remain seekers, man. If you're traveling out of the country, man, you gotta be careful. Never know what could happen, man. Always be alert, always be aware. Same story. Seekers, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're a true one. Seeking the truth. I greatly appreciate the support, like I said, guys. Thank you guys for joining me on my journey. Please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, follow me on my social medias, man. We're growing. Let's continue to do that. Still doing these daily uploads for you guys. Guys can catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.